Morning and happy Sunday. I'm your host, Jolly. You are tuned into the Sunny Daze podcast, where last week's brightest stories shine all in one place. And a belated Halloween to all of you. Hope you had a wonderful time and dressed up, had fun on Friday. And so last week we talked about Mondays. Did you know? And did you know, sticking with the Halloween, that candy corn was originally called chicken feed when it was invented back in the 1880s? Yep. The classic yellow, orange, and white treat was made by George Renninger of the Waldorf Candy Company and marketed as a snack for hard-working farmers. Each piece was meant to look like a kernel of corn, a nod to America's agricultural roots, and it was made by hand, one color at a time, poured from buckets into molds. Talk about patience. And here's the kicker, love it or hate it, Americans eat over 30 million pounds of candy corn each year. Seems like enough to circle the moon and back. Okay, maybe not literally, but close enough for a sweet exaggeration. So next time someone teases you for loving candy corn, just tell them you're a fan of history and sugar. And in our entertainment section, we did Rainy Reads this week. The top bestsellers, The Intruder by Frida McFadden. It's a thriller that found its way to the top of the charts. The story involves someone arriving unexpectedly and not in the invited guest sort of way. According to the best-selling data, this title leads the hardcover fiction list in mid-October. So, if you're in the mood for suspense and heart-racing moments, maybe a stormy night with power flickering outside, this would be the one for you. And then there was Twice by Mitch Albom. It's a thought-provoking novel about second chances. The protagonist, Ala Logan, discovers at a young age that he can redo moments in his life, but there is a catch. So, if you're feeling reflective and want a story that mixes romance, consequence, and what ifs with real heart, that's it. And there was The Secret of Secrets by Dan Brown. From the best-selling data, this one sits high in the hardcover fiction list for October 2025. If you like mysteries and codes and maybe globe-trotting intrigue, well, the standard Dan Brown fare with autumn vibes that suit a rainy afternoon, this is one for you. And then there was The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, a nonfiction bestseller by the motivational actionable. It's designed to spark change. It's topping the nonfiction list. It was topping the nonfiction list last month. So if you have the new season, new me energy, this one's inspiring for building mindset and momentum. And last but not least, there was The Alchemist by Sin-Lin Yu. It's a fantasy romance blend that's trotting strong in the fiction list. So think escapism with magic, high stakes romance, perfect when you want to leave the real world behind for just a little bit. And last week's Jolly Chat story was The Grown Up Trick or Treat. Well, it all started one foggy October evening in Random Pass, a town where candy bowls were sacred and the plastic pumpkin buckets had more seniority than the mayor. But this year, something strange was in the autumn air. Maybe it was the full moon, maybe it was the pumpkin spice fumes, or maybe it was just the adults finally losing their marbles after too many PTA meetings. Whatever the case, the grown-ups decided this Halloween they were taking charge of the fun. So out they went, but not as chaperones, as trick-or-treaters. Mr. Benson, the high school principal, dressed as a vampire and carried a tote bag shaped like a report card. And Mrs. Jenkins, the librarian, well, she showed up with a sparkly witch with a broom, sparkly witch with a broom that suspiciously looked like her Swiffy. Even the town sheriff got in on it, wearing fairy wings and handing out parking tickets shaped like candy wrappers. And instead of knocking on the doors for candy, they knocked on the doors to give it away. Imagine opening your door to see a group of grown adults shouting, "Trick or treat," and tossing chocolate bars into your bowl. One lady got a coupon for a free coffee. Another got a homemade caramel apple from Chef Dan Dracula. Someone even gave out tiny bottles of bubble bath with tags that said, "Because adulthood is scary enough." True that. By the end of the night, laughter echoed through the streets. Candy was traded, selfies were snapped, and for one magical evening, the grown ups remembered what it felt like to play again. The kids, watching from their windows in disbelief, whispered, Are are they having like more fun than we do? And the answer, my friends, was a resounding yes. Because in random pass, Halloween wasn't just randomly reversed, it was reborn. The end. And our thought to ponder this week, the sun. The sun doesn't always rush to rise. It knows even brilliance takes time. Think about that for a moment. Every day it greets the world, slowly stretching light across the sky, one soft ray at a time. It doesn't burst through the clouds shouting, "I'm here." It simply becomes. Hmm. Maybe we could take a note from that rhythm. Not every great idea, not every dream, not every version of ourselves needs to be on full display and happen all at one time. Because even the brightest things take their time to shine. Hmm. And our feel good story last week, the dad who dropped the beat and the mic. All right, my beautiful people. It was feel good time on Friday. It was the day we traded our worries for warm fuzzies and maybe a giggle or two along the way. So picture this. It's story time in a cozy living room in North Carolina. The lights are soft, the mood is mellow, and a dad named Austin Wade is about to tuck his little boy in for the night. He opens the children's book, classic book, Llama Llama Red Pajama, that bedtime one. But instead of reading it a sleepy voice, Austin decides to drop a beat. Yep, his dad turned bedtime into showtime. He starts rapping the story, full rhythm, full swagger, and a lot of heart. His little boy, he's giggling so hard he can barely breathe. And before long, the internet's giggling right along with him because Austin's video goes viral. Now, it's not because he had the best rhythms, mind you, or the slickest beat, even. It's because he reminds us of something we all forget sometimes. The joy doesn't need a stage or a spotlight. Joy just needs a moment and the courage to make ordinary things fun. He took a bedtime story and turned it into a memory. A little laughter, a little rhythm, and a whole lot of love. So find your own little remix moment, right? Turn the grocery store run into a mini dance party. Sing your coffee order in. Make the mundane a moment worth remembering. Because, like Austin was showing us, happiness isn't hiding, it's just waiting for you to press play, right? Well, thank you so much for joining us on this week's recap of the Sunny Daze Daily. I hope these stories carried a little warmth into your heart and a smile onto your face. Remember, no matter what the week brings, there's always a reason to look toward the sunshine. I'll see you next Sunday with more stories and more spark, and of course, more days filled with sunshine. And until then, stay bright, stay sunny, and most importantly, stay you.